Okay, so we're only a little more than a blot away from the end of the parak, but there are a bunch of topics on this blot, to say the least. We'll see how many of them we do. But let's start with the Mishnah. So the Mishnah says, "Ein maskirin lem batem be'eretz Yisrael ve'en tzarich lomar sadot." You can't rent the non-Jews' houses in Israel, right? Because of, as Rashi notes, that the Gemara will really tell you this, but Rashi says, it's a gzeira, it's a decree, because since you're not allowed to sell them land, as we've dealt with exhaustively, no, not exhaustively, but extensively, let's say extensively, we've never done it exhaustively, so we also don't allow you to rent them houses in Eretz Yisrael, and for sure fields, right? Why? For sure, so the Gemara will get into this, right? That why are fields worse than houses? Because you both have lo techanem, right? You both have the problem of giving them land. Plus, it's mafkia for maestro. That while it's in the hands of the non-Jews.
Oh, but then we asked a question.
Right. Remember, you did this Gemara. Yes. Okay. Good. This is why I said run through the Gemara first yesterday. Yes.
And then later on.
Okay. Uvisuria, right? And in Syria, and we will get into this because this is a very fascinating sugya, which is exactly what is the status of Syria, which was conquered by David. Yay.
Rashi.
Good. Yes, Rashi. Or if you knew Tanakh. But yes, it was conquered by David, which has, as we'll see, a somewhat of a middle status, possibly, but we'll get into that. The question of kibush yachid, shmei kibush. Now there are all types of conquest, and there's all types of interesting questions that I'm looking into now. Is there prohibition lo sechanem on these parts of Eretz Yisrael which have less kedusha, which we'll get into. V'suria maskirin lehem batim avalo sadot. You can rent them houses, but not fields, as the Gemara will say, because it's 2 steps removed. Right, gzeira l'gzeira. Uv'chutz la'aretz mochel lehem batim maskirin sados divrei Rabbi Meir. And outside of Israel, you are allowed to sell them houses and rent them fields. Rabbi Yossi, but the implication is you're not allowed to rent them houses. Yes? Rabbi Yossi Omer, Be'eretz Yisrael maskir lam batim avalo sados. In Eretz Yisrael, you can rent them houses, you can rent them houses, but not fields. Surya mochran batim maskir and sados.
Sell houses
and rent fields. Chutz la'aretz mochran elu ve'elu.
Either way.
But the Gemara says, af magam shalom lahaskir. But when we say you can rent, lo lebeis dira. Amru, you can never rent a house to a non-Jew to live in. Because he's going to bring an idol into it. Right, or lo tavi toiva, whatever. El beitecha. Chol makom lo yaskir lo es hamer chad b'nei shu nikra al shmo, nor can you rent him a bathhouse because it is called on his name. So just to tell you the sugyot, that there are in this next blot, and there are a lot of them that I think we should cover. Definitely by Pesach we will have finished the parak, and then I guess we'll do Tfilat Caleb afterwards. I assume before Pesach. I assume more like Purim time, and then maybe we'll do some Pesach stuff. Maybe we'll do some koshering, the koshering sugyot around Pesach, which is. A lot of the main sugyas obviously are about Pesach. So do that like Pesach. It's also sugya in that part. I don't know. So the sugyas I want to deal with is first the one in the Mishnah, which is this renting. Right? Why can you not rent a house to a non-Jew, even in Chutz La'aretz? And how do we do that? Because if anyone's ever been involved in real estate, you will know that we do. Right? There is a mezuzah question, which we'll get into in the first little bit of the Gemara, which is, as we'll see, right? The Gemara says that fields are worse than houses because fields, when you give them over to the non-Jews, it removes the chiyuv maaser, or the practical implementation of maaser.
And you're giving them land.
And you're giving them land, but by houses you're not. And the Gemara says, what about mezuzah? And the Gemara tells you what becomes one of the most important phrases And mezuzah is mezuzah chovat hadarhu. So, and this beautiful long tosos over here is
so beautiful.
It really is. It's a gorgeous tosos. It's an absolutely gorgeous tosos. So I last night I prepared I think 5 iyun shirim. I just like pounded through it late into the night. Zeva. I put together a 6-page makar sheet on Chavot Hadar. In the middle of putting together Kibbutz Yachid was fun because I was like, I think I made a note to myself on my Bechina to Rosen so I can do this in 8. And I found my email where I'd emailed it to the shir assistant. I'm like, look, I made a note for myself to look at the Maritats if I ever get shir on this. That was a long time ago. Back when Rabbi Block, you met yesterday, he was the most senior guy in shir at the time. I think it was his 7th year in shir. It was my first year in shir. So I want to deal with that.
Time travels, by the way. You've described many years, and you're not old enough.
How much? Yeah, the guy who spoke didn't even look that much older than you.
He's probably about a decade older than I am. Yes, exactly. Anyways, so I want to deal with that. I very briefly want to deal with later on. The Gemara says you shouldn't sell 3 houses to non-Jews because it'll create a shchuna. And there was an interesting debate discussion in 1968, I think. Lubavitcher Rabbi and Moshe Feinstein and Hapardes, where they talked about do issues like this indicate whether or not we're allowed to does halacha have anything to say, like in America, right? The way things normally happen, less so in Israel because of whatever. There's just sort of demographic shift, right? The frum community will be here, and then housing got too expensive. People move to the next community, and the shuls will collapse here. Is that a problem? Are you not allowed to sell houses when you know it's part of demographic change, right? The Gemara seems to have the problem with this, right? You're not allowed to create, right?
Well,
non-Jewish.
It doesn't say about demographic change. It just says selling in general.
So kal v'chomer, right? What happens if when you sell 3? I'm talking about later on when the Gemara says selling 3 because it creates a shchuna, right? Do things like that weigh in on? Does halacha have anything to say about allowing this demographic change to happen to the point where the community collapses? So these are all, I think, issues that come up. On Amud Bet, the question of the merchatz gets into some Maras Ayin issues and some issues of having people work in things that have your name on it on Shabbos, which, if you want to, is the basis of the very complicated sugya of leaving websites open on Shabbos, right, functioning on Shabbos, right, from a Jewish company.
Jewish company's website being open on Shabbos?
Right, because Nikreis al Shmo, right, this category that introduces from merchatz. Can you do that, right? You have to shut down your website on Shabbos like B&H does on Hayom, right? B&H Photo, right? Shut down his website.
That's so much fun. All the Hasidim.
Right, but it's a huge multi-billion-dollar company, which has like 1,500 employees. This is not like
no idea it was all Hasidish until I actually had to go to their hub.
Yes, well, my father works in the programming.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Before.
No, like it's Israel. You understand? It's not like the store is just part of it, right? It also has government contract. That's why it's a huge, multinational corporation.
Everything there. It's insane.
Yeah, but that's nothing compared to the government deals
that they have with people.
The army, cameras, telescope, things like that, right?
Wow.
Stuff like that. Okay. Anyways, good. So those are some of the sugyas that come up from now till the end of the parak, right? That's the next blot. Like I said, it's a very chock-full daf here, but it's actually impressive. We've basically actually gone through the first parak, right? We've skipped things. We haven't done every little thing, but especially if you come to Agadata, we've covered a lot of the Agadatas in it, not all of them, but we've gotten a pretty good handle on the first parak. Okay, so let's start with the case that comes up in the Mishnah, which is the renting, okay? So, I want to deal with 2 things. One is the local question of renting, and how is it that Bisman Hazeh, you see left, right, and center, the Jews are in the real estate business and rent out property, right? How is that mutter? Which is, I hope by this point you have realized is a theme in the Rishonim, in the first parak of Avodah Zarah, which is, why do we ignore all the halachos in the first parak of Avodah Zarah, right? From the beginning, why do we do business with them? Why do we do business at holidays? Why do we...
Literally, why, yeah.
Like, literally, it's every sugya. So we have to do that here, too. And the second thing we have to do is the broader sugya, right? Which is, the issur here is not just renting. It is which I want to try to understand a little bit of as well. Okay? Good. So let's start with really we should start the other way, but I'm going to start with the smaller sugya first, which is the renting. Okay, so renting. Good. So, so why is it that you are not allowed to rent a house according to the Gemara, but you can sell a house in Chutz La'aretz? Why is it that renting is so much worse?
Because they might bring it's your if they bring an avodah zarah, it's into your house.
Correct. That's the formulation, right? That's the key. It's not that they might bring avodah zarah in; they might bring it in when you sell it also. Right. The problem is that when it's renting,
you still own the place.
You still own it, and therefore, right, again, it's meduik in the pasuk. It's lo tavi toeva el peitecha, to your house. To sell it to them in Chutz La'aretz is a big deal, right? So they'll bring it into their own house. Okay. So the Ravid puts this, I think, most clearly. This is what I gave you in number 2 from the Rashba. The Rashba goes to the Ravid because of a Ravid Zal. Omer ani dafka schirut, avol mechira shari. This is only renting, but selling is fine. Because if he brings in avodah zarah once you sold it, he brought it into his own house. Ukrad lo tavi asmachtahi. But then he says something striking, and he says, right? So, the Rashba claims that is this prohibition d'oraisa? No. Of renting? No. Right? Why?
Because it's
look inside. Ukra delota. I don't know how you said that. Everything you repeated. The Ravid literally off the bat. Ukra delotavi asmachdehi v'lavi surah d'oraisa delo asher torah lachnazi Yisrael atzmo. He said biblically none of this is true.
It's only derabbanan.
Because biblically, what do you need to do to violate lo savi?
You have to bring it into your house.
Yes, you have to bring it in. Aval grama dal yidei goy lo. But to cause a guy to do it is not biblical. I mean, the whole thing is rabbinic.
Would that fall under the category of lifting?
Possibly, but not necessarily, because you don't know what's going to happen. You don't enable it, right? Unclear, right? I mean, that's part of what the Gemara discusses later on. V'nira li shezem mefurash hu b'gemara d'la'el b'perkin b'plug d'deschirei kanya ilo kanya amrin tashma b'makom sham l'hasker lo l'beidir amru v'shamachna tzolcha v'dezar avisa k'deschirei kanya ki ma'el avese kama ayel alma kol heicha de'izbei k'niya gemura l'echval l'avese kama ayel. He says it is explicit, right, that we are only worried when it is your house. Right, because if he buys it, we don't care because it's his own house. Rabbi Yossi af bisuria v'chem limkar goy beveze my debay of it. And therefore, once you've sold it, the guy can do whatever he wants. The bishlam b'schirut kevin ha'asni b'hatei l'ukmei b'chiyuto l'michvash b'peri b'lachud idar b'umatzi ma'akev alei l'machira machi mezabno ni'alei mima'akev alei. Okay, we're going to come back to the Ravid's point that it's d'rabbanan. But the Rashba articulates this. Clearly, Rashi already hints at this. Right? The simplest shot, that the reason that renting is worse than selling, again, even though the Ravid thinks this is only d'rabbanan, is because renting, it is in my house, selling is...
So why do we say that
it's in their house?
Is the Ravid going along like in Eber sense?
No.
You bringing them into the...
No. That's exactly what it's not.
I mean, what would go against the Ravid is that this is more by you still selling it to him.
No, so the Ravid says, so it's not clear whether it'd be left neighbor. There's a whole bunch of conditions. He says this is a derabbanan application of lo tavi toeva el beitecha. Yes? Like I said, I want to do two things. I want to figure out the nature of the Yisrael Savi Toeva, but we're doing this backwards, right? So first, the renting. So the Torah, you're right, the Torah should sound familiar because he summarizes the halachos, right? Maker adin, ein mochral merit Yisrael kol davar mechubar kagon ilan v'kama aval mochral tanai sheyakuts, right? This is Avchein Gazav Rambam Rav Ilfis Aser Gam Bazeh. Elo im kein katzes osot chila. Maskos on the rush zal kamo Rambam Ramban. Come on, First thing first is, you remember yesterday I told you, I don't want to focus on this, but the end of the Gemara before the Mishnah says, there's a machlokes Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda, whether when selling a tree in Chutz La'aretz, you can only sell, in Eretz Yisrael rather, you have to have already cut it down, or can you just make it a condition of the sale?
We heard it says it could be on condition, or Meir said.
Correct. And how do we paskin? So the Torah notes, it is a machlokas rishonim how we paskin. Right? Okay, great. Good.
Machloket though, it's not that we...
But it's a machloket.
But like I said, there's no outcome. It's
Right?
just the machlokas.
The Rambam says, right? The Rambam says you can sell almanas, right?
I like this.
Right? And the Rif paskins, right? He says the Rambam paskins that you can depend on him to cut it down. The Rif says you cannot. Point 2. Our Ramban causes to a dinami chutzar nami aser gzera atu eretz Yisrael. Right? We've seen this quoted several times. The Ramban has a unique shita that you can't even sell real estate in Chutz La'aretz gzera because you might sell it in Eretz Yisrael. V'lo niru dvarav la'adoni Avi Arash Zal. Right? And we don't paskin that way. Right? The Rosh paskin against that, we also do.
I understand that. If we're saying, I was going to ask it before, that's what I remembered. If we say renting, you can't rent because they might bring in the Chutz to your house, then why in Chutz La'aretz is it permitted?
It's not.
It says in the Mishnah.
No, it doesn't. It says you aren't allowed to rent.
It say you're not allowed to in Chutz La'aretz.
It says mochem.
Renting isn't allowed.
That's exactly the point. You can't. Ein mochem batim v'sados v'Eretz Yisrael maskir lem batim v'lo sados. Right? You can't sell them houses in fields in Eretz Yisrael, but you can rent them houses. Again, as we'll see, not houses where they're going to live, but storage. V'chutz La'aretz bein batim bein sados mutaren bein limkor bein lahaskir. In Chutz La'aretz you can sell or rent. As long as you don't sell to 3 at once. In a Jewish area. But to 1 or 2 you are allowed to sell. But when you rent, it can only be
For storage.
For storage. Correct, for storage. So all of that is a summary of the Gemara, except for the last line, right? Like Nachum, we were like everything is a repeat, except for the last line, which is Va'idna nagu lahaskir af ladira. But nowadays we rent even houses, right? To live in. Kevin she'nog and lahachnas elil bivatehem. So now I ask you, okay, why is it mutter for a Jew to to rent property to a non-Jew in Chutz La'aretz against the Mishnah? So possibility 1.
It's for storage.
I'm not asking for storage. That's not against the Mishnah.
Oh, we're saying for houses.
You are a real estate person.
Okay.
Right, Nachum? In 10 years from now, you'll be managing millions of dollars of property and renting it in the Upper West Side of Manhattan. And you'll be renting also to non-Jews.
Is it possible this gets back to what we did regarding who's considered Obdei Avodah Zarah?
Oh, good.
Non-Jew?
Good. So you guys should only be able to predict this, right? You should only be able to predict what type of answers.
You wouldn't be able to do it to just Christians. Anyone else in the Chutz La'aretz is fine.
So you'll see, right? I think you can predict the type of answers that are going to come up in Rishonim, right? Now, before we look at the Beis Yosef, who in every sugya asked this question? Which Rishon asked in every sugya, how is it mutter? Tosfos, good. Let's read Tosfos. Look at the last Tosfos in the Amud.
Thank you.
Says, Af b'makom sha'askir l'amr lahaskir lo bid amru. Yesh lefakvek. Alma ha'yusomchem b'nei adam limkor lahaskir b'adam l'kochavim. V'avam l'beis dira. People do it. How do they do it? Oy, oy, oy. V'yesh sherotzim lahavi raya lahatim yitani b'tosefta kan v'kan lo yaskar dem beisel ovet kochavim v'bnei sheyodei shemach l'socho avot kochavim. Right? The Tosefta says you don't rent them property because you know they bring in idols. But you are allowed to rent out either stores or storage houses, even though they do bring in idols. So Tosa says possibility 1 is there's a difference between whether he puts idols in it all the time or once in a while.
Like every once in a while, I have like a nice Avodah Zarah event.
Correct. Now, why does that make a difference? Let's try to understand all these answers. Why would it make a difference if it's usher to have an idolater, to rent out a house to an idolater because he's going to bring idols into it and it'll be in your house? So why is there a difference between B'kviyut and Tadir? And not Tadir, rather, Arai.
We don't want you to make a base of Avodah Zarah, but it's not a base of Avodah Zarah.
Oh, good. So one conceptual possibility is that the Isser isn't that a Jew's house should not become a base of Avodah Zarah.
That's not what the pasuk says.
Right? A house.
It's saying bring it into your house, so it doesn't.
Well, this is that we're being this is what the
for it to stay
means.
there. It's like you keeping a statue of Buddha in the house.
So this is one possibility. Is what Shimon's saying. The difference is, it's not that you can't have an idol in your house. It's that you can't make your house an idolatrous place.
Why doesn't the pasuk say that? The pasuk saying bring it into
so give me Malcolm doesn't
New-
like it. So give me another answer.
Newsflash: the pasuk isn't exactly mashma. Perfectly with the way the words fit.
Malcolm, give me another possibility. What might it mean? Give me another answer. Why might this be a difference? If it's not because of it, right? The difference is whether it's an Isser to make your house the base of Avodah Zarah versus having Avodah Zarah in your house, right? Being associated with Avodah Zarah. We'll pin this down later, right? What else might it be? Why else might there be a difference between Arai and not Arai? Kavua and Arai, right? Permanent and not. Remember the Ravid? You said, it's not beduik in the pasuk. What did the Ravid say? It's an asmachta. The whole thing's derabanan, right?
The pasuk's in there.
Yes, it's an asmachta. That it's not really a deraisa. We hang it on a pasuk. It's not a real pasuk. It's a derabanan to begin with.
Oh, it's one of those like we give you a
asmachta. That's the word for it. Asmachta, right? So it could be that maybe that's the difference, right? That maybe. He says, right? So then he says, if that's the case, he said, look, if that's the case, because he said, look, it could be that in someone's storage house, once in a while they bring an idol, but we let you sell it. Why? So you let you rent it. Because it doesn't happen. Tosfos in answer 1 says it doesn't happen all the time. So he says, nowadays, so nowadays, they don't bring idols in all the time.
Context of
you remember this, Tosfos? Tosfos says this many times in the parak, which is, even if they are of the Avodah Zarah, they're not such from of the Avodah Zarah, right? So sure, they might be of the Avodah Zarah, right? So like once in a while, they bring in an idol, but like it's not like they have an idol there. It's not, besides that guy that Reb Solovsky talked about who had an Asherah in his backyard, right? Right, that was fun. But most people, they don't do that.
What do you have in a store? Renting something for storage? You're storing idols.
No, then presumably be also according to Tosfos. Correct. If you knew that according to Tosfos' first answer, right, it would be clear. Right, Tosfos' first answer is that the Isser is only b'kviyut, which sounds like it's also to make your house a base of Avodah Zarah or something like that. Or we'll see other possibilities, right? Or it's just Rabbanan. What's another possibility?
It's all derabanan.
So I think that was a possibility I just said. What's another possibility? Can you come, right? Again, we'll throw out some conceptual possibilities. I think another possibility might be, is the Isser to simply have an Avodah Zarah in your house, or to make it that you're associated with Avodah Zarah? But if it happens all the time, like it's associated with you, like, think about it. If you have someone who happens to visit you once and has an idol on their, whatever.
It's kind of the same.
No, it's not.
No.
If you have a friend that
is it a formal Isser to have an Avodah Zarah in your house? Or is it a problem that you shouldn't be associated with Avodah Zarah? Association...
It wouldn't necessarily be usher to have Avodah Zarah in your house.
Not, right?
If you're not associated.
It's like you keep...
We're going to see that there might... Now, see, we're blurring the line, and this is what's going to come up once we get past the renting thing, right? Is that there might be difference in the way that Avodah Zarah comes into your house, right? Because there's several different possibilities. You could bring an Avodah Zarah in your house, right? A non-Jew could bring it in with your intent. A non-Jew could bring it without your intent. A non-Jew could bring it in and take it out and you won't benefit from it. Or a non-Jew could bring it in and you are benefiting from it. Right? Now we'll see. All right, another possibility, and this is raised by several of the Mefarshim, is that maybe what's the difference between kviyut and not kviyut? Kviyut is permanent. Non-kviyut is not permanently, like once in a while. So another possible possibility is that if the nature of the Isser is
It's only for like
that it's usher to benefit from Avodah Zarah, then it would only be kviyut. Why?
Because if it's not
Yeah,
permanent,
it's
you're not
temporary.
really.
It's temporary.
You're not really benefiting.
Why not? Why am I not benefiting?
What do you mean?
What do you mean? Why am I not benefiting if he brings in Avodah Zarah temporarily, but I am brings it in all the time?
for that time.
No. So we'll see. What's the argument?
Why are you not benefiting if he does it temporarily?
Yeah. Because
Make the house for what is just
yeah. So now let's formulate it more sharply. Because if he brings an idol once in a while, then why is he paying rent at the end of the month?
just the
To
whole
live there.
Because he lives there. So sometimes he brings in Avodah Zarah, sometimes he
If it's
sleeps,
permanent,
sometimes
why
he
is-
eats.
If it's permanent, why is he keeping paying?
But
rent?
if it's permanent, right? Then your benefit, right? Part of your benefit is coming from the fact that a from idol worshiper is using your house for his prayers. I mean, if it happens once in a while, right? It doesn't like integrate into the rent, right? It's like, it's like
It's a stretch.
not no,
According to that-
no,
If he
no.
store in his house,
No,
he's
Nachum.
paying for.
Nachum.
No.
Do you know how
He's
many?
paying for a place to
Nachum.
live. He's not necessarily paying for a place
Nachum.
to
Do you know how many
live.
contracts?
Exactly, there.
Do you know that there are
what it is.
Do you know there are rental agreements that will say that you are allowed to have guests for up to 3 days, but you can't have guests for more than 3 days or something like that, right? Why? Because certain rental agreements they don't want extra house. They want this house has enough parking spots for 10 families, right? And therefore, we don't want you subletting part of your house, right? Your apartment. So there's 11 families living in a 10, right? In a 10 family apartment. But they'll let you have someone for 3 days because that person is a guest, right? But if he's there more, then he becomes a subletter.
Right, but this is just a piece of property.
Okay.
I don't understand. It's like
No, but
having
it's the same
it's like
concept.
having a TV in your house.
But it's the same concept. It's like saying, right? It's like saying you can't have guests. You can have guests, but you can't sublet, right? Because if you sublet, it's a different chalos. Right now, the person is a renter. Right, so here, Mike Tosas be saying? Look, if once in a while it brings in Avodah Zarah, so fundamentally, you're not benefiting from the fact that it has Avodah Zarah, right? Like, so you don't impose.
It's like those bathtubs that have a shower too.
Yeah, but do you
You
benefit?
usually use
do you
it for the
benefit from
shower.
this? If he owns a TV for 3 years, do you benefit from it? No, because it's just a piece of property he has in his house.
No, but let me put it differently, right? Let's say, right, he chooses your apartment building, right? Because you have a deal in your apartment on cable TV, right? So now, are you benefiting from the fact that he has a TV in his house?
Yes.
Yes. But what happens if, once he doesn't have a TV, but once in a while,
His friend will come over and hook up a TV or something.
right? So, are you really benefiting from the fact that he, in the first case,
Why did he
right?
sign the
He
contract?
chose he signed with you because this is a place where I can watch good TV, right? Or I can I can worship Avodah Zarah, right? As opposed to him saying, look, once in a while, I get into a frum mode, I bring in my idol, but I rented this apartment not because he's cool with me bringing Avodah Zarah.
Renting it for living.
Correct.
He's the owner of the
Because he wants to live there, and Palm Bay, he brings in Avodah Zarah.
Right, but the other one is.
Or let me take a different case, right? He's not from Oved Avodah Zarah, but his mother is, right? He's not the derech idolater, right? So he's now on the derech, right? He's strayed. But if you look on holidays, his mother wants to come over, and she brings her Avodah Zarah. So look, he picked your apartment building. Why? Because it was far away from his parents, right? It was far away from Avodah Zarah, but, part of living is that once in a while he lets his mother come, and he doesn't oppose when she brings her idol, right? Mm-hmm. So, you're not benefiting from the fact that, right, again, you could argue on this, but these are all different formulations. But at any rate, practically, Tosas' first answer is that the difference between people who bring Avodah Zarah in all the time and people who don't. Now again, does this rely on saying they're not idolaters? No, it just says they're not from idolaters, and therefore they don't bring in idols all the time. Right? Which was an answer we saw in Tosfos.
This is why, in those cases now, if you're renting if you're renting for storage and you keep idols in the storage, that wouldn't be allowed.
Yeah, exactly. Bidyuk, right? According to this logic, right, if they wanted to buy a storage apartment, storage unit, and they said, do you have a storage unit? I really need it, one that it's good in private because I have these
giant golden Buddha.
Exactly. It's really I need a deposit box in your bank to keep. I inherited this from my great-great-grandmother. It is a emerald-studded idol, right? It houses the spirit of whatever, right? Of whatever, yeah. It's worth millions of dollars. So in a chanami, right? According to Tosfos, that would be aser, right? Because even though it's storage, right? It's storage l'shem avodah zarah. Correct. Okay, that's answer one.
Rabbi, let's say I don't understand, because let's say he rents your house because you have a deal, first month's rent is, half price or something like that. But he has a avodah zarah in his house with him. He's not renting your house because it's good.
Correct. So that's what I'm saying. But it's still
because it's a good deal.
Yes, but if he was a really from idolater, he wouldn't take advantage of that if he knew that you would impose religious strictures, right? And therefore you are benefiting from it. Okay. Okay. Now let's continue down to 3 lines from the bottom. Skip down. Right, another answer. To be chutz la'aretz lo mikri beisecha ela ba'aretz. The kashu batuva chada ki ein nir l'rei sheyigra Yisrael b'chutz la'aretz me'ovid kochavim la'filu man nirin kin lo v'nechom Yisrael b'chutz la'aretz. We'll come back to this. This is really in the other Tosfos. Let's see.
That's a big question. Or a coffee grinder.
Yeah, where is it? Reb Chaim Cohen. Right, so Reb Chaim Cohen says that maybe it is only. One second. Why am I missing this? Where is Okay, I keep missing the beginning of this piece by Reb Chaim Cohen because I'm trying to skip. So I'm not going to stop trying to skip. Okay, but that was first answer. There it is. I just literally just went over it. Look 4 lines from the bottom. Reb Chaim Cohen here. Rabbeinu Chaim Cohen, maybe Raya Lahatir. We're going to see in Yerushalmi. Haba makom sha'askal ad lo lebeis dira amru. Haba makom shenago limkor mocher af lebeis dira umasker af lebeis dira.
Okay, now.
Vayanir lo atam d'chutz la'aretz lo mikri beisecha ela ba'aretz. Right, he said, Reb Chaim Cohen said, it's only usher to rent in a place where it would be usher to sell, and therefore it's mutter to rent in chutz la'aretz. How is that possible? The kashu batuva chada kenyan the rich yigra Yisrael b'chutz la'aretz me'od kochavim da'afilu man nerein kenyan lo'od kochavim b'Yisrael b'chutz la'aretz mi'a yesh la kenyan. He said, first of all, I don't understand this because in chutz la'aretz you definitely have a kenyan, right? And a guy definitely has a kenyan. V'od kashu b'yudah d'gavim mizudak z'beisecha ha'chanami tema d'yesh d'misha yesh lo bayit v'chutz la'aretz Yiftar min ha-mezuzah, right? According to his logic, you don't really own houses in chutz la'aretz, right? Sorry, Chaim Cohen says basically in chutz la'aretz you don't really own your house, and therefore it's no problem, and it's mutter. He says if that was true, it would be pater from mezuzah in chutz la'aretz.
We just say, but mezuzah is individual, not for the household.
And he says va'od kasher l'real Yerushalmi also tosefta, etc. So miyonir l'reid Yerushalmi Reb Chaim Raya Gemurahi and atosef lo kasher midi dikan v'kan kayar tzishol v'surya v'after nekamet v'azizin hamitzavar achid also b'tshuva mechiras batam v'chutzar shetir limkar muter lahasker Yerushalmi. Chaim Cohen, Elatam Fresh Raman Chanov, Nick Shamra Turlo, Savi Toeva, Visecha, Eiklamir Loshal, Visisral Atmo, Shudar Bisocho, Bodo Darbo, Filbert Stral, Kamob Mezuzah, Shano Chayeva, Eleve Sobozo Darbo, Sochar Bias Aver, Chal Patam and Azusa, Minha Torah, Rabbananu de Gazru, Ashkel Chomshe Machna Sochavoz Chov, Mashka Davka Batima, Asuyim Ladiro, Enem Shomilo Gazru, Kachatir Lasker, or the Joseph became in the Skiros base, Dira, and also Elm, Rabbananafa, Aretz, Imken Chotz Aretz, He, Kilo. So, the second possibility, and third possibility, which Tosfos brings up, is that maybe it's really mutter in Chutz La'aretz. Maybe what he meant it's usher is maybe only in Syria or something like that, right? Meaning when it says Chutz La'aretz, it means like the parts of Israel maybe close to Eretz Yisrael or something along those lines. Rabbi Jonanthan says, look, really it's only usher to rent out to have an idol in your house if the Jew lives there. Right, but not right with the non-Jew. But if it's just the non-Jew, it's only usher midirabanan, and therefore in Chutz La'aretz we can be mekel. Now he's not totally clear. Yeah, so he's not totally clear what he means. Right, like it's clear that the Mishnah says it was usher. So maybe he thinks it's derabanan, and therefore we can apply some other kulos. Right, not totally clear. So let's move to the Beis Yosef, where he sort of boils down the answers. And he says, okay. Mishnah Shavanilim Karafil Dira Shari the Kimshano Goyin the Shaz Chusbo Aval Pisha Machnes Go Lasocho Avod Zara Lislan Bav Lodami Lasocha Aval Pishur Shusagoy Komakom came the Rabbi Shal Israel Isbe Mishum Lasoya Besecha. Okay, right. So first he just says the reason you can sell and not rent is because selling it's not your house anymore, renting it is. And then he says, so nowadays we permit it. Why do we allow it? So at Tosfos Harichusham B'tam HaMinog. Right, the Tosfos at length defends the minog that nowadays we do rent property to non-Jews. The Rush boils some of it down. Tema Amar Shenagu Idna Heter Lasker Batam Lagoyim V'Aval Pisha Machna Sochal V'Dazara Samach Lemitaso V'Yesh Lavi Raya Lahatim V'Tani B'Tosefta Kan V'Kan Lo Yasker Adam Beisa Lagoy V'Mdei Sheodeh Shemachnizim Dochal V'Dazara Amar Maskirim L'Msad V'Osers V'Pundukos Aval Pisha Machna Sochal V'Dazara Umay Shna Deshari Sadas V'Osers V'Pundukos Sheodeh Shemachna Sochal V'Dazara. Right, so first he quotes the first answer in Tosfos, which is how could it be mutter? Right, even according to the Mishnah, to give them storage houses, you know they bring idols. Hilkach near lefarish dasvinin lahasker lagoy hainu midrabanan. The pshita dekra kamazir liYisrael gufei. So he says it must be that really renting is only midrabanan, like the Ravid, because the ikar iser is for you to bring an idol into your house. Ela shachacham mazu lahasker lagoy. Vagoy maybe have a desire leveis Yisrael. V'hilkach lo asru chachamim ela beis dira. And therefore Chazal said only houses. Uvimehem hayu regilim lahachnes of a desire levatem bekeva tamid. And in their day they used to bring it in all the time to houses. Ve'tiru b'sadas v'ozuz m'ganekos aval b'shei adua shemachnes l'socha v'dazara. But storage houses, even though they bring in avodah zarah sometimes, came and chain machnes bekvius. They would permit it since they didn't do it all the time. And so nowadays, since they only bring in idols when they're sick, it's permitted, right? That's all answer one. But what does the Rush say that Tosfos didn't say explicitly? Well, the Rush seems to be connecting the first and the third answer in Tosfos. Is that why do we distinguish between kviyut and not kviyut? Because it's derabanan, and that's just the way they set up the derabanan. Right? Vod, answer 2. The Nihil Dilidan Skiris Lokanya, which had almost Kefa with Dinam Skiris Liyom Kemecher, Vafim Naval Basal Masker, and a Yachalo Tio have a Kemecher. Then his second answer is really my favorite, because it's right. His second answer is, you know what the difference is? The difference is rental agreements. In the time of the Gemara, when you rented out property to someone, what protection did the renter have?
Did the renter have?
Yeah, the renter. Nothing.
Oh.
If you wanted to kick him out, you could. Right? Meaning renting. Right? There wasn't. Right? Nowadays, what rights does the renter have? Everything. Right? It is like impossible to evict a tenant even if they haven't paid in months. Right? Eviction is such a pain.
eviction notice.
Right, and then they can apply for extensions, and there's a right. So the Rosh says, you know what the real answer is? What's the reason that the Mishnah says you're allowed to sell but not rent? Because if you sell it, it's theirs and their problem, and if you rent, it's your problem. But the Rosh said that's only true in a world where the law that you're functioning in doesn't treat rent like temporary ownership. But since in his time, and this is true in our law also, do you have pretty much any rights over what happens inside the guy's house? No.
You just have to make it.
Right? Once you've rented something out, it's basically his till the end of the lease, and you can't kick them out barring really extenuating circumstances, even if they don't pay the rent. Right? The burden of proof is on you, and it takes a while to evict. Mm-hmm. Right? Secular law makes it that our rentals are basically temporary sales.
Right.
Right? Like, think rent control. Right? Oh, I can't kick them out for the last 40 years. Right? And they're still paying $78. Right? Or his aunt just passed away at 97. She'd been living in the same rent-controlled apartment on 23rd Street in Manhattan since like 1960-something. Like, I can't imagine how little money she was paying. Right? Like, rent control. So there's a law in America that certain apartments are rent controlled. It means that as long as the same person lives in it, the rent can either not go up at all or can go up minimally. And therefore, and they can only change the price when someone moves out and a new person comes in.
When $78 was worth more.
Right? So that means that the price has barely gone up since 1963.
But
right?
The value of the money.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
But
wow. That's incredible.
Right? So, you can't, but the fact that there are laws like that in America show that the way American law treats rental is what? As a temporary sale.
Right.
And if the reason that it's usher to rent but not sell property is because you can't have an idol in your property, so then
sell it.
Then nowadays, since rental is viewed by the law as temporary sale, it would be mutter, because now even if he does have an idol, it's in his house, not mine.
He temporarily owns it.
Correct. So that's correct. So that is the second. I think the main answer. Halacha-l'maisa, right? Because that one really solves everything, right? That one tells you that the only thing you couldn't do is like, if you have a house like you rent like a 5-bedroom house and you are the renter, and then like you bring in roommates at your whim. So then you couldn't bring in like an idolater, right? Which, look, that's a bad idea in general, right? Like if you advice for life, right? If you choose the best way you want to live is when you're a bachelor to rent a 5-bedroom house and bring in roommates, right? Bring in roommates who are not
idolaters.
Bringing in their idols, Besides for the fact that it's usher maker I don't know if that's what you want. What?
It's like no pets, no other religions.
Right, so I don't know if you could put it that way, but no idolatrous orgies. Look, I don't care what you believe in your part-time.
No orgies.
Like whatever, I don't know. Right? Like all types of things you can put in the quote. Okay. Yes, in 5 I just gave you Shulchan Aruch, right? Who summarizes all of this. Just skip to Yud. Af b'makom shetir lahaskir lo etiru el oter v'chayotze bo v'lo l'dira v'vnei shamach nasoch avotchom b'keva. And then the Rama writes, "Va'idna nagu lahaskir af l'dira kevan she'einogim lachna avotchom b'vatayim." Right? The Rama clearly thinks that which is the main answer. The main answer is that they don't bring it in b'kviyut. Right? And a socher buy it may. Okay, good. Look at the shach. And the shach says, but wait a second. Right? So let me just summarize this quickly. Right? The Rosh thinks there are two main answers in Tosfos. Right? One is kviyut versus not kviyut, which he conflates with the third answer, which is that it's derabanan, and that's why there's a difference between bringing in idols all the time and once in a while. Yes? Mm-hmm. That's answer 1. Answer 2 is that nowadays, rent equals temporary sale. The Ramah says which answer is primary? Kviyut. Right, permanent versus not permanent. That's what he says. Right, but the Shach says that doesn't work where I live because
renters have temporary ownership.
No. Kasha da chazina machzizim what's called mevatein rafil bekeva. Because where he lived, they brought in, I assume, right, statues of Jesus.
Even the temporary.
Right, bekviyut. Now, it's interesting that the Shach, even though he agrees with the Ramah that Christianity is not avodah zarah, still thinks that these are idols. Because remember I talked about this? Right, that just because you think Christianity is not avodah zarah doesn't mean that you think a statue of Jesus is not a chefza of avodah zarah.
Right, like the cracker. And the
right, which is why I think the Ramah isn't bringing up the heter, Christians aren't over the avodah zarah. Because even if they're not, it still might be that you don't want a statue in your house. Right? So he says, and that's what he says. He says, V'dochak lomar. Look what the Shach says. And he says, maybe you'll tell me, because you've learned avodah zarah since September, right? So you're going to tell me, it's not a problem, because Christians aren't real idolaters, or they don't really believe in it. He says, V'dochak lomar. He said, maybe you'll tell me, they're not idolaters. He says, just because a Christian isn't an idolater, doesn't mean that their idols aren't considered idols. Right? The person may not be an idolater, but the statue is still a statue. Right? The Efshar, so he says, look, maybe Bisman Harav, Lo Nagam Lahachnavos Kocham V'Vatayim Bekefa, Shemok Varosh, Vitur Bismanehem. Maybe in the time of the Ramah they didn't bring in statues of Jesus. I don't know. Abalafini is daiti to Zamchina Nidach Shinu Yeshikals of Arosh. I think that the second rush is the real one. Which is va'od nehidli don schiros lokanya kaven shiyada almost kefa u'dineim schiros alima kemecher va'afim navel bevos shamasker and yachalotzia v'kemecher akan l'shono. Right? It's because it's a temporary sale, and therefore it's mutter even if they bring in idols. Now, what's the proof? So the proof is that in the time of the Gemara, even if you'd made a contract with somebody, let's say your house fell down, and you're the landowner, right? You're the right. So what are you allowed to do? Kick out your tenant, even with a contract.
If your house falls.
Yes, like in the time of the Gemara, let's say I had a contract with my tenant, right? But then my house falls down. So the choice is leave my tenant there, and I'll have to go find another place to live, or kick my tenant out, and he'll have to find a place to live. So in the time of the Gemara, in such a circumstance, you can kick them out and you move into your own house, right? But since in Western law that's not true, right? Too bad, right? Your tenant gets to keep their contract and you go find yourself a house. So that shows it's temporary sale. V'chein kazer Ravan dafil machnizin over the chavim levoteihem shari mishum dechavim deosin Yisraelim nosin mas mekarkos v'kachavim einan miyuchad abayis l'Yisrael. And he says what proves it. The Ravan adds one thing. What proved it for the Ravan was, now this is not true in America, but it is true in Israel, right? In America, who pays real estate tax? The owner, even if there's a renter. In Israel, who pays real estate tax? The one who lives there, right? Whether you own it or not. Right, so in the time of the Ravan, that was true also. Right? Now, it's interesting, because Bisman Hazeh, the Shach is right that a rent is a partial sale, but he's wrong about the tax thing. Right? In America, that's not true. I don't think that'll really affect it. I think it's still true. Anyway, so that's the okay, so this was the relatively short part of this sugya, right? Which was, okay, how is it that practically we rent out? Bisman has basically 2.5 answers. One is that it's derabanan and we're makil, maybe because of tzarech, not so clear what Tosfos wants from that. The Rush conflates that with kviyut, not kviyut, which again, if you just think it's derabanan, fine. If you think that it's doraisa, you'll have to come up with some other formulation that we might develop tomorrow, which is a difference between hana and not hana. We'll come back to tomorrow. And then there's just the practical thing that nowadays in the law of the countries that we live in, rent equals temporary sale, and therefore it's not your house. Okay? Good. What I want to do tomorrow is really take it one step further, is saying, okay, the Gemara, in the background of this whole Gemara was, again, the Isser of Lo tavi toiva el beitecha, which we already saw that the Ravid says, that's derabanan. Why? Because the main Isser is not for you to allow a guy to bring it in. Correct. So what I want to do tomorrow is figure out, okay, well, what is the daraisa? Right? What is the nature of the Isser Of Lotavi of the Isecha, you'll see there's two different psukim where it emerges from several different sugyot. That's what we're going to try to do tomorrow. And we'll see that some poskim are quite expansive on what's included in this. I gave you at the end like an online tshuva that I found while I was looking around that says that this Isser forbids you from bringing a TV into your house and all types of fun stuff that come from this.
That sounds like a Lakewood.